Hi everyone, it's Dr. Sloan. We're going to talk about genetics and genomics in nursing. So here's your objectives. These are slightly changed from the objectives that were posted originally in Blackboard. So you might want to take a look at these. These are simplified a little bit. And I think they're quite obvious as we go through the presentation. So let's use this little case study as an opportunity to look at a genetic problem that would manifest itself as something we would see in the clinical area or out in public for that matter. Mrs. S.J., a 42-year-old woman who's pregnant for the first time, was admitted to the labor and delivery unit. She appeared to be in excellent health. This anticipated delivery would be the culmination of an uneventful pregnancy. 8 hours later, she delivered a 7-pound, 3-ounce baby boy. The infant had low-set ears, a flat facial profile with a small nose, wide epicanthal folds, and single palmar crease. Parents were told that the baby's features were the result of a genetic aberration called Down syndrome. The father asked, "How did this happen? How could we have known? Will it happen again? And what does the future hold?" And we'll answer these questions as we go along here. So you have a nurse assigned to take care of this newly delivered family. And some of the questions that need to be asked are you prepared to discuss this genetic condition? How do you answer the father's question? What's the most important role of the genetic competent nurse? What do you already know about genetics and genomics? And what do you need to learn to feel more competent in this role? So this is one lecture. We are not going to make you genetics and genomics nurses, but we will at least increase your awareness as to the impact of genetics and genomics in medicine. If this is something you're interested in, and depending on the area that you choose to work in, you'll learn a lot more about this. So what do nurses need to know? Your professional responsibility as a registered nurse is to be an advocate for your patient. In order to do that, you need to be able to present, review, understand genetic information as it pertains to someone's culture, religion, their knowledge level, their literacy ability, meaning at what level can you share information with them so that they understand it? What's their preferred language? You want to be able to develop a plan of care using genetic and genomic information given. You want to help facilitate referrals and provide current information. So let's just do a brief review of genetics. Most individuals are born with a set of 46 chromosomes, and the first 22 pairs are referred to as autosomes. These are the same for both male and female. Okay, so those first 22, if you're looking at them, you're not going to be able to tell whether they are male or female. But the last pair consists of chromosomes that determine one's gender and considered sex chromosomes. So remember, autosome, as we get into autosomal dominant or autosomal recessive, it's talking about the genes that are considered autosomes and not the sex genes. So all 46 chromosomes, they're tightly coiled packages of DNA. They're all wound up in there. And they have the basis of each person's hereditary information. It's located in the nucleus of every single cell in the body, with the exception of red blood cells. I apologize that my screen is advancing on its own. See if I can fix that. Red blood cells don't have DNA in them because they don't have a nucleus. And then reproductive cells, or gametes, i.e. the egg and the sperm, have only 23 chromosomes for conception and human development. So again, right, that makes sense because an egg and a sperm come together, and between the two of them, there's 46. So each one individually only has 23. So brief review, I'm not going to go over the base pairs, you can look at those. But one thing I do want you to remember is that DNA directs the synthesis of all the body's proteins. And if you think about that, proteins really are the building blocks of life. And so if things are not coding correctly, then that's going to lead to problems. Most genetic disorders are caused by changes in DNA. The Human Genome Project, you all are young enough to probably not really know about this because for most of you, it concluded or was finished around the time that most of you were born. So in 2003, April, we finally had mapped out the entire human genome, 20 to 30,000 genes. That are responsible for more than 4,000 Mendelian conditions. So pretty exciting. So we have this genome. It's like a set. It's like a map, right? That really tells us about this particular person. One thing that's super cool is every single cell in the human body that contains the nucleus contains the entire genome. So that's why we can take, a nasal swab or a piece of hair or skin cells or blood, and again, not red blood cells, but other parts of the blood. And we are able to find DNA and be able to study more about that. So genomics is just the study of all genes in the human genome together, including their interactions with each other. So here's a question. Which statement's true about the role of a gene in the synthesis of a specific protein? Well, the answer is, well, a gene contains the code for a specific protein. Okay? So what makes us unique? If you look at all of these kids, they are vastly different. Eye shape, skin color, hair color, facial shape, curly hair, straight hair, straight teeth, crooked teeth, freckles, no freckles. So how come we're all so different? A lot of that has to do with just, our genetic code, what we got from our parents, right? But we also know that mutations can occur in DNA. And so it's an alteration in the sequence of the DNA that potentially can change then what this gene can do. And so it's known as a mutation, and it really is the basis of human diversity, and it can really impact a person's health and development. So let's talk about different mutations. And the important thing to remember here is not all of the subpoints underneath, but really that we have two kinds of mutations. We have inherited mutations and we have acquired or somatic mutations. Inherited means it's coming from a parent, and the mutation can be found in every cell in the body. It's present at birth and remains throughout life. It's present in the parent's egg or sperm cells. You got it from one of them or both of them. Receives DNA from both parents, and then if this DNA has a mutation, the child that grows from the fertilized egg of this human being will also have the mutation in each of his or her cells, depending on heredity, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Sorry, gang, let's go back. Acquired mutations occur at some time during a person's life and are present only in certain cells. So it's interesting because these could be caused by environmental factors such as ultraviolet radiation from the sun or chemical exposure like benzene or other harsh chemicals. It does not present at birth, and it only occurs in certain cells. So you may only see the problem in a certain type of cell line, but not the entire body. It may affect the entire body, but not every single cell in the body will have this mutation. And again, it's not inherited, meaning that hopefully when the person reproduces, the mutation will not be carried on. So let's get some examples of mutations. Only a small number of mutations cause genetic disorders, and I think this is really important. Every single one of us, we all have mutations in our body. Some actually, alter genes, DNA base sequence, but they don't change the function of the protein. And these are called silent mutations. So again, all of us have silent mutations, and they're able sometimes to repair themselves before we even see evidence of them. Some examples of mutations are things like Alzheimer's disease, which is something that we see on chromosome 19. We can also see some examples of diabetes, cancer, right? Now, that doesn't mean that all of these conditions can be explained just by mutations, but it's one possible reason why this has occurred. Which statement's true about mutations? All mutations cause disease. You cannot acquire mutations after birth. They cannot repair themselves, or they may not change the function of the protein. And the answer is D, right? They may be silent. So then we want to look at chromosomal defects, again, mutations. And it is the leading cause of mental retardation and miscarriage. So these defects may result in an abnormality in chromosome number. Maybe you're missing some chromosomes, or an actual abnormality in the chromosome structure. Okay, so here's an example. Down syndrome. Down syndrome is trisomy 21. Which means that the 21st chromosome, instead of 2 copies, there are 3 copies. It has a 1 in 800 occurrence. Changes increase with maternal age. So as eggs get older, they are more susceptible to chromosomal problems. And certain types are inherited, but most are caused from an error in cell division. So mom and dad, gamete and sperm, everything was normal, but when they came together and there was replication in that initial pairing, then that's what happened. Sorry, I'm laughing on my slides. Okay. Another chromosomal defect that's really interesting is Turner syndrome. This is monosomy of the X chromosome, meaning that there's only one X instead of 2 X's. Remember, if you're female, you have XX. And so, sorry, X, yes, XX. And so, these folks are not considered cognitively impaired, but they do have sort of an interesting appearance. So short stature, webbing of the neck. They can have what's called coarctation of the aorta, which is a congenital heart anomaly. And this is highly lethal during gestation. So most fetuses or embryos that have Turner syndrome or monosomy of the X chromosome never make it into actual babies. So it's interesting. Those that are born are quite rare. Letty from NCIS LA has Turner syndrome in addition to congenital hypopituitarism. And if you've ever watched NCIS LA and seen her, she's very short stature. Just has an interesting countenance, facial qualities. Klinefelter syndrome is another one. This is where you have XXY. So instead of XX or XY, you have this Klinefelter syndrome. And there's 3 chromosomes. So male appearance, but usually sterile. Again, and male